Oh, yes, that's a lovely tree there. Great. Oh, beautiful. That's great too. Oh, look at that one. Oh, don't mind me, boys and girls. I'm looking at some pictures of trees, and I don't know if that's weird to you. Is it weird that I'm sitting looking at trees? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But let me explain to you why I'm looking at trees. Because they're kind of incredible. So they are. They're kind of amazing because they all come in different shapes and sizes. They've all got different names, and they're all totally unique. But there's one thing that they have in common, and that's what I want to talk about today. So let's chat about that. So let's talk about trees. Now, maybe some of you have trees in your back garden. Maybe you've got some in your front garden, or maybe you live somewhere near in Moira or anywhere in the Moira area where there's a lot of trees around. I live in Lurgan, and Lurgan Park has so many trees in it. It's unbelievable. I love that park for that reason because trees are great. They all come in different shapes and sizes, as I said, and they're a little bit like us humans. They're all different, aren't they? Because there's some have different names. There's an oak tree, there's Christmas trees, there's pine trees, and I'm sure you could list a whole different list of trees that maybe I wouldn't even know about, but the trees come in different shapes and sizes. And I have a lovely tree designed and drawn by me. We have a lovely flower beside the tree, and we've got a dog around sniffing at the tree as well, just to give you a little bit of an idea. This is a big, big tree. You see, as I said before, trees are all different, have different names, all different shapes and sizes, but they've all got one thing in common. And that one thing that they've got in common is maybe not what's up here, okay, so this is the ground. It's maybe not what's up here, okay, that we can see, but it's got to do with what's down here below the ground, because every tree has roots that go into the ground, and that's where it gets water from. It's where it feeds, and the roots go into the ground. Now, the amazing thing about trees is that there's some trees out there where their roots are actually longer than the tree itself because they go so deep and so wide. Every single tree has roots because it needs roots, because if it didn't have roots, well, what would happen? It wouldn't stand very long. It would fall over when a gust of wind came along, or there was a really bad storm. It would just fall over. So you're probably wondering, why, Matthew, are you talking about trees? Well, if you remember last week, we were looking at Colossians chapter 1, and we looked at how Jesus stepped down out from heaven on the earth, and we talked about how everything is made for him and through him. And now we're going to look at Colossians chapter 2, and this is what it says in Colossians chapter 2, verses 6. It says, "So then, just as you've received Christ as Lord, continue to live your lives in him, rooted and built in him, strengthened in faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness." So Colossians 2 here is teaching us that we have to kind of be a little bit like a tree. Now on the screen now you're going to see some different trees and different roots. Now the first image, you can see that the tree is this is a really bizarre photograph, because the tree should fall. If you look at the photograph, it should be falling because there's no ground underneath it. But because the roots are so deep and so wide, it's keeping the tree up. This photograph, the next one, we can actually see the roots of this tree because they go so deep and they go so far down. They're massive and they keep the tree intact, standing up. Now this is probably one of my favourite photographs, this one here that you're seeing on screen, because this tree was on sand, but the sand beneath it has all disappeared. It's been washed away by the sea, but yet the tree is still standing. There's nothing below the tree, no ground, no earth, no sand, but yet it's still standing. And that's because the roots are so strong that they are keeping it standing up. So what lesson, boys and girls, do we learn from the tree? Well, first of all, up here on the outward appearance in a tree, we're all different, because there's some trees that they have, their leaves, and they've got this. There's some ones that are smaller, that are maybe only this size here, that are quite small, and they all come in different shapes and sizes. Like us, we're all different, we're all unique, but we all have to have roots that go down that maybe we don't see in people's lives. But the question for us is, how deep do our roots go in Jesus? So again, let us go back to what the verse says in Colossians, and let's see what we can take away from it. Verse 6 of Colossians chapter 2 says this: "So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live your lives in him." So what we've got to do is that we've got to continue to live our lives in Jesus. So continue to live in Jesus, okay? The same way that a tree continues to stand tall and strong day in and day out. You know, I have never in my life saw a tree standing and then went out the next day and it's disappeared. The tree's always been there because the tree continues to stand strong, and we are called to continue to live in Jesus day in and day out, whatever comes our way. And then next we have in this verse, it continues on to say, we're to be rooted and built up in him, strengthened in the faith as we were taught. So we're called to be rooted in Jesus. Okay, so it's very important that not only are we continuing to live in him, but we're rooted in Jesus, and that our roots go deep and strong enough to hold us up. Because as we've seen from those pictures that I showed earlier, that roots are vitally important for the tree to stand up. It's why the tree doesn't blow over whenever a wind comes or the rains or the storms come. The tree stands strong because it's rooted and built up in Jesus. So we're to continue to live in Jesus the same way a tree continues to stand big and tall, and we have to be rooted in Jesus. And this is what it says at the end. And we're to overflow with thankfulness. So we're to overflow with thankfulness. And I don't know if you've ever noticed that what happens with trees. Well, trees are good, they give us oxygen, and they do so many things like that. But trees can sometimes bear fruit, don't they? They bear apples, and there's oranges, and they bear all these different things. And there's some trees in some words that do coconuts. Coconut trees do that, and they produce things, don't they? That's what trees do. They produce things. So not only are they to continue to live, are we to continue to live in Jesus the same way a tree stands strong every day, and not only are we to be rooted in Jesus the same way a tree has roots that go into the ground, but we are to overflow with thanksgiving, okay? So the same way when a tree has all these things together, it overflows with fruit and various different things that grow on it, like acorns and different things that gets produced by the tree, because all of these things, we as Christians and we as people of God are called to overflow with thanksgiving. We're called to be thankful for what Jesus has done for us. So we can think back to what we learned last week in Colossians chapter 1 about how God stepped into our time to save us, and that because we continue to live in him, we're rooted in him, and it causes us to overflow with thanksgiving for what he's done. So boys and girls, remember that. Remember when we see a tree. If you've got a tree in your garden, or you've got a tree in the park close to you, or a tree at your school, or wherever, always remember about the tree. That we may see what's up here, but there's stuff that goes on that's very important down here. And the same goes for us. What goes on in our heart is very important, and it shows in our lives, and what comes out of our mouths and how we live our life. It's very important that we remember that. So boys and girls, I hope you've enjoyed this. Tune in over the next couple of weeks, because we're going to have a bit more interactive things happening. We're going to have a bit of competitions and more activities to do. And just remember that I am praying for you, and we at St. John's are praying for you. We know that it's very difficult at this time of school, being online and not being able to see your friends, but we're praying for you. So always remember that. Now we're going to enjoy a bit of music, a bit of dancing, and a bit of singing. So be sure to be singing and dancing along with Eddie and Ellen as they lead us in a bit of praise.
I can do anything.